Hello and welcome to my cake kitchen. My name is Gladys and over here I make simple, informative tutorials to help you navigate cake decorating easily. I also create baking tutorials live, which is a simple baking series to help you with useful, relatable and achievable information and processes that will enable you to undertake your own baking at home with all the confidence you need. Today we're making a simple lemon and poppy seed cake. It's a cake, but I'm baking it in a loaf pan. And also, most importantly about this recipe, this is part of a series that has just started. This is episode 2 of the series where you pick a recipe I know nothing about, and then I bring my experience, we bake through it, and then we find out in the end what it is like. Our first episode was exciting, which was the pineapple upside down bake, which I will link at the end of this video. It was nominated by the moderator of this channel, our friend Amanda, who surprised me with that nomination because I had never made that cake before. I had no idea. And in fact, being a classic recipe, which I am not so fond of, I was pleasantly surprised. It was so good. And if you've been on this channel before, you'd find out that I don't hide my reactions. Okay. So when we got the cake out of the oven, it was like, oh, people. So I'll link that video in the description box and also at the end of the live session here so that you can have a peek. But if you're new here, peruse the homepage. We have edited videos on the homepage of tutorials concerning buttercream and all things cake. The intention is to bring you simple, informative tutorials to help you navigate cake decorating easily. So today, our simple lemon and poppy seed loaf. I have never baked that before. I have my own lemon cake recipe, so I have a sort of idea about lemon. But since this is you pick a cake and then I bake it, I thought instead of using my own recipes, I will delve into something completely different. So this is a recipe by, I think, Home Baking Adventures. I'll link that in the description box for you. If you enter lemon and poppy seed cake, it probably is the first on the YouTube search. I picked that. It's a recipe from 7 years ago. But I'll tell you this, when I looked at the recipe, the intention is not to test the recipe out or know anything else, because one of the things we are also learning in this process is for you to have real information about recipes that you get online, whether they are true to what they purport to be. In that case, I can be able to recommend those recipes for you to try at home. Over here, we don't keep any information. So whilst this is you picking a cake for me to bake, it is also an opportunity for us to try different recipes that are available online and to check for how reliable they can be. So hopefully we can get a good bake out of this. But saying that, when I checked the recipe out, I looked in the description box and also in the comment section, and a few of the lead comments were like, I tried this recipe, I tried this recipe. So the little skeptic in me is going, is that like a paid is that paid people leaving those comments? I also looked at the recipe details closely and I was like, okay. So I will be telling you a few adaptations and substitutions I've made for the ingredients, but that is simply because hopefully we can guarantee ourselves a good bake. Over here, we are not scared at all to be wrong. And if we're wrong, we are loud and proud about it, because that is the only way we can learn from our mistakes. Baking is extremely exciting and it's great to be able to do it, but it also requires a lot of knowledge and understanding of the processes, and hopefully which will help you get a great result. So in the second episode of You Pick a Bake, you pick a recipe, I get to bake it. We're going to be starting lemon and poppy seed cake. The ingredient listings are very simple. I am not sure the entire quantity. In that recipe that I checked online, it was baked in a loaf pan. It's very simplistic. There is also a glaze that goes over it to soak the sponge up. So hopefully we should get all that done. But over here we have some butter. If I forget the exact quantities of the ingredients to be used here, I'll leave everything in the description box for you. Plus I will link the original recipe I am referencing over here. So we have unsalted butter here, which I will put straight into my stand mixer here. Now For the stand mixer, I'm using it. For this quantity, we could use a hand mixer, but I'll be employing the hand mixer for something else later when we are on the live. So I have preheated the oven to 170 degrees C over here, and in the stand mixer has gone in the butter. There is granulated sugar. I have decided to use granulated sugar, but you can substitute that with caster sugar. This recipe also combines the solid fat and liquid fat, which is the vegetable oil. I suppose the intention is to give us a very nice texture, which is moist, not super dense, but not super light either. We want to have some structure to the cake that is really sturdy. So employing the oil here adds moisture to the cake and tenderizes the texture of the cake and enhances the cake when it is baked very well. I also noticed that for some of the ingredient selection here, we have gone for ingredients that will also enhance moisture, slow down gluten production, and ensure that our texture is slightly delicate, which is great. That is just by looking on the notes. Essentially, that is from having a sense of baking experience over here. But this is not my recipe. I know nothing about how this recipe will turn out. So if it falls flat, that's on me. And if it doesn't, that's not me either. All I did was come here and make a cake. Before that, we have the zest of 3 lemons. I think the original recipe calls for 2 lemons, but I like the smell of lemon zest. So I have gone ahead and zested 3 fresh lemons. When you get the lemons, you want to make sure you're getting unwaxed lemon, because the waxed one obviously is glazed with wax. You want to be careful with that. So I got myself unwaxed lemons. And just a little bit of information to help you out. I think I kind of got ahead of myself here. Possibly to get the best flavor from the oils of the lemon zest, you want to mix that into the sugar first so that the sugar soaks up the oil of the lemon zest. Of course, I haven't done that, but it makes no difference. But to enhance the flavor with the lemon zest, you want to start that even before you introduce the fat into that. So I'm going to cream that for just a few minutes, and then we will add the vegetable oil too. Now, saying that, the ingredient listings are completely listed on the community post here with the exact quantity. So if you're in the chat and you are not sure about what I am doing here, I will update the description box later when we are done with the live session. But if you really are curious to see what the ingredients listings are, you want to check the community post. I should also say our community post here is a useful tool for updating and elaborating on information that we may have missed in the live session. But if you're new here, you're welcome. It's a pleasure to have you. Thank you for taking time to be here with me today. In the meantime, we are creaming our butter and sugar with the lemon zest and vanilla. You could see that I didn't measure the vanilla. We don't measure our vanilla here, so not to worry, but I'll leave exact quantities in the description box. Now our butter and sugar has creamed a little bit. I'm just going to scrape that in. And before we continue, I'm going to add the oil in here. Now, if you ask why the oil, why don't we use solid fat altogether? Of course, I suppose if I tested this recipe, my recommendation based on my own knowledge of baking processes will mean that you can actually substitute the entire quantity of oil with solid fat. But oil also has some properties that will add to the texture of the cake in a good way. Of course, oil adds moisture and enhances the texture of the cake, tenderizes, and helps you achieve a very delicate crumb. Whilst we want to get not a super dense cake but not super light, we want to have a structured cake with a delicate but stable crumb, and oil can help us and achieve that. So I suppose adding oil helps. Of course, butter can be replaced with margarine, but I'm using butter here because I am also optimizing for a great flavor in this cake. With that said, the recipe called for 3 whole eggs. I have made a simple adaptation by changing the 3 eggs to 2 whole egg yolks from large eggs. So the yolks of 2 large eggs and 1 whole egg. This is because I want to enhance the texture and also the color of the lemon cake. Because lemon cake can be a little bit, whilst the lemon is supposed to look have a bit of color to it, in the baking process it can disappear and be a little lighter. So I want to enhance the yellow looking nature of the lemon cake by adding more egg yolk. But I also don't want to exceed the quantity of eggs that are supposed to be in the mixture. Over here, egg has binding qualities. It adds flavor, it tenderizes, and also adds moisture. With the oil in here already, I'm gonna scrape that quickly. It is such a small quantity. I can almost smell the flavor here in the kitchen. This cake smells so good. Now, with the creaming done over here between the sugar and butter, I'm going to add 1 whole egg yolk, and I'm going to let that mix in for a while. I'm adding the second egg, and then we have 1 whole egg to go. Sometimes in this process, other people can choose to add color. We won't be adding color at all. And I'm quite surprised, it's my first time I am making a lemon and poppy seed cake. I have tried a lemon cake before, a lemon and mango, and that was so good. But I have a recipe, but I've never tried a lemon and poppy seed cake. So I'm really excited to see how this comes out. We have mixed in the 2 egg yolks. I'm going to add the whole egg now. And then we're going to increase that slightly. For the original recipe, it's recommended plain flour or all-purpose flour with an addition of baking soda and baking powder. I have completely done away with that and swapped the all-purpose for parts of self-raising flour here in the UK and plain flour. The reason why I did that is because I do not want to get the texture of the cake so light by completely using self-raising flour. So I want to maintain a bit of stability to the structure and crumb of the cake by balancing the delicate texture out with plain flour. But I've also eliminated the use of any rising agent because the self-raising flour comes formulated with rising agent at the point of production. Saying that, there is a whole series on this channel where I talk through the use of different sorts of flour and the result of our bakes. That series was for a particular purpose that has since ended. So if you want to know more about the self-raising flour, the use of that in the UK here, you want to check that series out as well. I will link some of those in the description box for you to check out. With that said, our creaming is done here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start adding the flour a bit at a time. We don't want to overmix our flour here. And we have some liquid ingredients that is parts of buttermilk to some freshly squeezed lemon juice. Like I said, the quantity of butter here is so small. If you don't have access to a stand mixer like I am here, swap that for a hand mixer, you should definitely be okay with that. The original recipe also by the developer requires the use of buttermilk completely. I just swapped that for a little bit of lemon also, just so that we can have a lemon kick to it. After all, it's a lemon and poppy seed cake anyway. So, oh gosh, look what I have done. Now it's a mess. Oh God, I'm annoyed. Anyway, that is by the way. I'm just gonna take this off the mixer a little bit. And we are going to mix our butter in by hands. Sometimes I like to have a feel and taste of the butter, especially for it flavorful. Oh, okay. That tastes great. The butter in itself, all by itself, is really lovely to taste. Right. So I think for the quantity, we can go ahead and dish it into the baking pan. What I've done is I've lined the pan with a liner. So that should make it easy for us to get the loaf out when it is baked. We are filling it up to perhaps 2/3 of the pan so that there is enough room for rise. I actually like the look of this cake by itself. The original recipe has a glaze that goes on it. I have prepared that in advance because we want a cool glaze to go over the cake. So I have done that, but what I did with the glazes, I'll talk you through that in details in a moment. What I've done is I added some pineapple juice to that. It's the pineapple from my pineapple upside down cake. I thought I had tipped the pineapple out, and then I found that I hadn't at all. So I was excited about that. Okay. Okay. Now, that is all done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spread this slightly. Right. And there you have it. I'm going to stamp that. We have our butter all done. I'm going to leave this to bake at 180 degrees C for 55 minutes to an hour 15 minutes. It shouldn't take that long, but you never know. So I'm going to put that in and I'll come back and talk to you. A quick tip. When baking, you want to make sure you have some water at the bottom of the oven. It serves as a cooling mechanism to cool the heat in the oven so that it doesn't cook the cake vigorously. Because this is such a small cake, I don't want to overcook it, but also the moisture from the oven, due to evaporation happening from the bowl, should tenderize the bake and give you a more delicate bake instead of like a harshly burnt crust. So I'm going to get some water, put it at the base of the oven, and then put the butter in the oven. We'll set a timer for 55 minutes and hopefully we should have a cake that is done. That is our lemon. So that is our lemon and poppy seed cake in the oven. It is exactly 12:15 right now. So we should probably be looking at maybe 1:15. So a whole hour from now. In the meantime, whilst we're at it, I have some buttercream here that I'm supposed to mix into spreadable form that I can pipe for some cupcakes. So if you're in the chat, let me know where you are joining us from, what you're doing over there. Sometimes bakers, when it comes to buttercream, right? This is Swiss meringue buttercream. Now that is I'm only undertaking mixing the buttercream just so that I can stay and engage. In the meantime, depending on how the chat develops, I might probably close the chat and then come back 10 minutes before our bake is done so that we can have a look. Normally, our bakes here is we go with what is available or the circumstance of the time. So sometimes we have actually stayed on for 2 hours in the chat where we have interacted, probably talking about a baking centered subject, and then continued the chat and then waited for our bake to be done. Sometimes we can't do that because I also appreciate that it might be a work day and some of you are dropping into the chat to say hello and then go away and do your various things. So as a result of that, if we can't keep the chat interactive, it's a whole hour to be sat here talking to myself, right? It's such a long time. And if there's no need for it, we get out of the chat, close the live, and then come back perhaps 10 minutes before the bake is done so you can see a live reaction to the bake being done. That is because I understand that I could have undertaken this bake, probably baked a cake prior, and then introduced it back in the chat right after the batter is done, just to manage time. But our expectation here is to inform you, encourage you, and to give you an experience where you are part of the process, hence the results as well. So I do not pre-bake the recipe. If I have tested a recipe or it's my own recipe, I will tell you. If I know nothing about the recipe, I will equally tell you, like this one. Over here, we are loud and proud about our mistakes. And actually, if you check the live page, you'll find that I even made a blueberry loaf and it collapsed on me. I left it here live. In my cake tutorials, you'll find that I undertake a cake decorating process. It doesn't go to plan as I would like it, but I am happy to still undertake it and then give you tips on what I have learned in that process. So over here, we are not perfect. That is okay. For every successful baker has come endless nights of baking fails. So we just try to do our best, and hopefully you can be informed and motivated to undertake your own baking at home. Okay, Layla, brilliant question. Layla is simply asking, as a baker who has baked for a long time, has built her expertise and skill in baking, she is hoping to transition to become a business. What advice do I have for her as a sole trader? First of all, congratulations for even conceiving the intention that you want to transition. It's not easy trying uncertain grounds and trying new things when you are not sure. Trust me when I say, if you've baked for a long time, no matter how well built your experience is, it is never going to match the new grounds you are going to be breaking when you transition to become a business, because it will also require learning new experiences, adapting through the process. And that can be awfully scary for most people, enough that most people will not even make the consideration to start in the first place or to even think about it. So Layla, the fact that you are even thinking about this is a good thing. And for that, I want to commend you and say, welcome to the world of baking. It's exciting out here. Okay. Now, based on a general advice, I would say, you know what, before I say anything, circumstances differ. Circumstances, depending on where you are, what you want to do, what you want to achieve, will completely differ. So sometimes it's better to get tailored advice for your circumstance, right? Because sometimes when we start, I've spoken to a lot of bakers who are hobbyists and who want to transition, the generalized information about what you need to do is already out there. I won't be saying anything new, but I'll come to that in a moment. However, I will say to you that find a trusted baker, even if it's not me, a trusted baker, get to them. Look, I found that bakers are some of the kindest people, so giving and so helpful. Join a baking group, Find some trusted bakers over there, and then ask questions that are closely connected to your circumstances, right? Just so that you can begin to have a tangible idea of what relates to you and how you can achieve your goals when you start. That is the first thing I'll recommend for you. So anything I say after here is more generalized about what you can do if you're thinking of starting a baking business. Saying that, starting a baking business in the UK will. Are you in the UK? I should ask. Are you in the UK or somewhere else? Because the only advice besides the baking itself and generalized business practices, there are specific requirements for you as a UK resident who want to undertake a baking business, and it starts with at least registering with your council, which is your you have to call your council to let them know about your intention, and then they will send an officer out. It is a professional individual who is tasked with observing and assessing your living environment. That is, if you're baking from your own home, he will match it against a few expectations and guidelines, and then after marking you on all those processes, he will give you a rating for that. But that is on the other side of the process when you move on. Before you even tell your council you want to become a baker and that you want to be registered, the first thing you want to look at is what is in front of you. What do you want to bake exactly? What, if you were given the options of baking, what exactly do you want to bake? Probably, to stop overwhelm, narrow down the options, even if you have a lot of things that you think you're good at. So perhaps, are you baking cakes? Are you baking cupcakes? Are you baking brownies? There are so many different items and baking elements one can specialize in. But without having to niche down to a particular baked item, define where your business is set on the aisle of baking, right? On the spectrum of baking, define where your business is. So if you are going to go for baking cakes, define how many recipes you have adapted, tested, and can vouch for. That has nothing to do with experience more than knowledge also, right? You can be baking for 10 years and be baking the same recipe, which comes out great for you, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's great for the customer. Remember, food is completely subjective, and what you might think is great for you here right now, you'll find out very quickly that out in the world it doesn't hold, right? So be honest about what you have, your skill, your product first. It's awfully tempting when you start baking for friends and family and they all like cheering you on and you're super excited to go out into the world, right? Be very careful, because whilst friends and family are sometimes our greatest support, they are also the limiting factors to the harsh realities in our world outside of our us as a people, right? Because if you bake a cake, as long as you're not baking a dough-like bready horrible cake, a cake is a cake. Everybody wants to eat a cake. So yes, your mama loves your cake, your brother loves your cake, your friends love your cake. It's free, right? But if you went out into the world and then a customer throws their objections at your cake, how are you going to deal with it? I think, talking about this, I try to do a live on what one has to do in the process. So if you, Layla, if you go back a few videos on the live, you'll find one of the lives where oh God, Layla, you know what? I'll continue talking about this in a moment, but I just want to say, if you would like to leave a comment under one of my most recent videos, just so that there is a footprint, a footmark of you, I'll come back and note the video I am responding to. I sat down, it was one of those days I was sitting there, I was thinking out loud, I thought, oh, let me do a live, and then I broke down the process before you even consider registration. So you want to check that. But I hope that what I am saying here is something you can relate to. So depending on what you are specializing in, define that and make sure that you have good products based on that. What are your recipes? So if it's a cake, you're going to have to consider what kind of cake, what specialty or buttercream you're going to have to the cake, and what you really want to define even as a business. Do you want to specialize in highly technically presented decorated cakes, or you want to settle with something very basic and standardized? That is all something you want to think about, right? But also, don't be scared to try many things before you decide, because you will find out that the experience of making decisions will come as a result of the different things you undertake, and then you find out quickly what you like and then what you do not like. So Layla, I hope I am answering your question right, that as a home baker who wants to transition into a baking business, you want to make sure that you have a good quality product, which is tested recipes that you can vouch for, and also ensure that you have an accompanying buttercream to go with it. That is if you are going for cakes that are going to be decorated in that way. Baking doesn't necessarily have to be just cakes. You can specialize in whatever you are specializing in. But based on your experience of baking, define where you are at and what products you have in front of you. Now, having said that, here are a few things you can do to move you forward. Right. So now that you have the cake, you've been serving it to family and friends, the idea of a business is new to you. It is always going to feel new. And no matter what I say to you right here and now, you are never going to feel comfortable until you fall face in and realize that running a business and attracting customers and serving cakes to customers is a hard thing to do. So before you can even get there, which you can only do when you are registered, because in the UK, our recommendation and guidelines says you can't sell a cake to a customer unless you are registered. So there is regulation about that. So you don't want to do that. But let's just say in the meantime, you are baking cakes for family and friends. There are ways you can mitigate your cost by doing that. I don't know what your experience is and what you have been doing, but in the meantime, I suspect you've been able to make cakes for friends and family. And if you've sold a cake just enough to get your ingredients covered, you are not exactly breaking the law. But it is important for you to understand what you are undertaking, the guidelines that you are protected by, so you can stay within the protected rules of what you are required to do. Having said that, you can edge out now by looking out for people who are outside of your area of influence, that is positive influence. So make a cake, get your manager. Your manager is not essentially your friend, but as long as your manager is not cruel or a harshly horrible person, if you give them a cake and said, look, I want to get your feedback to it, be open to the feedback. Now, to be able to succeed, you will receive some unfavorable feedback, but that is okay, because through that you will learn the differences in people's preferences when it comes to food. Edge out and find reason to make cakes for different occasion. Your work colleague, that work colleague you don't like very much, that work colleague that says horrible things to you, not the bully, I'm not talking about the bully, but somebody you know will always have something off to say, but not because they hate you, but they are just straight speaking. Make them cakes and see what their feedback is. By so doing, you are building a quick tolerance to the negativity that will come your way, or you are building some strength to face the realities of running a cake business. But be sure to define your boundaries as well, because I'm not asking you to go and be making cakes just for free, just for the sake of doing that, because that will cost you. I see, Layla, you're asking me more questions in there. So let's see. Do you like a hot creamy pie? Layla, I don't mind a hot creamy pie, but what does that look like? I have no idea, right? As a baker, fun fact, I don't eat a lot of cake, but when Amanda nominated the pineapple upside down, oh my God, that cake was good, okay? It's up on the channel. It's the video, it's a live video from Tuesday. You want to check it out. it's amazing, even if I say so myself. But the recipe is not mine. So I am only um, talking about a recipe that I loved and I got great results from. But look, if you have a hot creamy pie you want to share, why not? I'm not mad about it, darling. Oh, okay, Layla, you were in Northampton. What a pleasure. Which part of Northampton are you? It's exciting that you're in the chat, right? So, Layla, am I answering your question for you? Do you feel a little supported? How many years have you been baking, and what's your baking experience like, right? So, do you feel like the recommendations I'm making are any useful for you? How many years have you been baking, by the way? Because after 10 years at this point, you should be a pro by now, isn't it? So yeah, with that said, bake as many cakes as you can and define um, your niche. And then by so doing, also make sure. I'm just waiting to see what Layla says to me. Find at this point in time, you may have received some feedback from family and friends. So the part where I say find some people outside of your circle of influence and then bake for them, it's to build confidence, to build tolerance, to build strength, and to have an understanding of the different people who are away from your sphere of influence. Thereby, they are also able to give you objective opinion, right? But if you've been baking for 10 years, I really, really doubt that you have confidence problems. But you know what? It won't hurt stepping outside of the people you have already baked for the last 10 years. So find a hard nut, make them a cake, and see what they say. And you will find that sometimes the fear of going into new fields is because we don't know what to expect. But if you have strangers complimenting what you have provided for them, then perhaps you have a good chance. Does that make sense? I think the support you need here is defining a clear pathway and then having objectives and goals set in time to achieve. Because if you baked for 10 years, look, I baked for 10 years, 5 of which I baked as a home baker, like doing just baking because I just wanted to as a hobby baker. And in the last 5 years, I built it as a business, right? I don't particularly enjoy the business of selling cakes, I should say, which is why I am here talking about baking and teaching you about cakes. I could talk about cakes for a lifetime if you allow me. But it had to take me starting a whole business, forcing myself to get a market space, forcing myself to go and negotiate for a shop, falling over, making a lot of mistakes before I recognized what was important to me and what wasn't. So you might just have to, I think you might just have to really narrow down your clear objectives and a defined pathway for achieving your goals, for if you really, really want to start a baking business. I hope that kind of makes sense a little bit, right? So yes, in the UK, to be able to sell cakes, you have to be registered. I know the rules are fairly different in America, but whilst we're at it, I am going to mix this buttercream quickly, and we can bring it back to piping consistency so I can pipe them on a couple of cupcakes I made earlier. So just so you know, when buttercream, especially the meringue based buttercream, Swiss, French, and sometimes, well, Swiss and Italian, but French is not meringue based, it's egg based though. They split, the emulsion breaks, and then you have this. Sometimes when you go to cream it in the stand mixer, it won't come together, and that is because the emulsion is broken and the separation between the fats and the liquid in there. So a quick way to kind of bring it back to a smooth and piping consistency is I'm going to put this a little bit portion of this. There's really no measurement to it. This you can eyeball it. I've brought it back from frozen to spreadable consistency by using this method. What you want to do is just take a portion of the buttercream, pop in the microwave so it's warm, and then introduce it back into the mix, and then you'll be okay. But you also want to be careful that when you introduce it back into the mix, it's not too hot, because when that happens, it melts the entire buttercream, which you can still reset by putting in the fridge anyway. So I'm gonna make put this in the microwave quickly so that it warms up, and I'll be back. We've melted that. I think it's overrun. So what I'm probably going to do is okay. I have a hand mixer here. And I am going to pour this back in. Yep. The problem with using a hand mixer here is that I wish I could get the consistency a little bit smoother, just so that I can pipe without air bubbles. But the hand mixer, as in the whisk, you can't control it very much. If I was using a stand mixer, I could slow it down to fold function, so it smooths out the buttercream. But that is neither here nor there. Clearly, the consistency is slightly different now to when I started with it. So I'm gonna put that in a piping bag, and we are going to pipe some cupcakes, and that is because we are just trying to while away time whilst our cake is baking. Okay, Layla, I hope I was of some help to you over here. And if you ever need any help or support, don't be scared to reach out, okay? But thank you for being here and for engaging in the chat. Now I have just put the piping bag in the glass so that there is length to it. And one way to prevent air bubbles from forming in your piping bag is to make sure that you move all the buttercream forward. For the cupcakes, I had 12 baked cupcakes from earlier this morning. Cream cheese. If you're asking me about cream cheese frosting, I'll come back to you in a moment, yeah? Right, so this is just quick piping for my little niece. She turns 4 today. And I actually forgot her birthday. So I was going to sleep last night when her mom texted me and said, have you managed to sort out the cupcakes? So I had to wake up this morning in prepping for the lemon cake. I thought, let me just sort these out. They are very easy cupcakes to make, and they are for her and her friends. So there's nothing super technical about these ones. I'm trying to think. They are kids, so I don't want to introduce anything that will become a choking hazard. I was actually thinking of putting some gold pearls on it, but these are for 4-year-olds. I could do well without those. So we've literally brought the broken buttercream up from broken curdled looking buttercream to straight pipe cupcakes here that are amazing. So hopefully that's a tip for you. Someone in the chat is asking for tips for cream cheese. To be honest, let's just say, where are you? First of all, which part, where are you located? Because if you're in the US, your preference for buttercream and results will be completely different from the UK. The reason being, the US, the formulation for cream cheese and the additives that are added, some are banned in the UK. So in the Asia, okay, Asia, it's because it has the Y, Asia. Okay. Okay, Asia, thank you. Am I pronouncing your name right, Asia? Okay, this is for Asia. You're asking for tips about buttercream. Oh, London. Oh, fantastic. So you are getting the cream cheese from Amazon. Okay, so you know what? I'll tell you this. I don't use a lot of cream cheese, and that is because of the stability issues that cream cheese comes with. However, I know a baker who can help you solve your cream cheese problem so it is more stable. I can give you tips for it, but check Sugarology. Her name is Adriana. She is a science-based baker on the platform Sugarology. You want to check her channel out, because what she does is she brings science to baking and takes up like a as if what we're doing here, but she would be here giving you the real deal about the science. So she's made a few cream cheese frostings aiming to optimize the cream cheese for stability. And she's achieved some great results because she has put her process through the whole science testing process. So if you have cream cheese problems, check her out. I don't use a lot of cream cheese because of the stability issue, and also combined with my preference of buttercream, because I primarily use Swiss and French buttercream. French buttercream is not stable at all. Okay, so because of that, I stay away from cream cheese. I have only used it at for a limited time and for a specific thing at a specific time. I don't particularly use cream cheese at all, but I know it's a great accompaniment to some cakes like your carrot cake and your red velvet. Because it has stability issues, I have used it in a carrot cake that has melted in the summer, and it was a wedding cake. I'll tell you all about it some other time. So yes, check Sugarology because she solves the problem for you without you having to rely on hacks and tips. She took a cream cheese and did a whole recipe testing to ensure that it is stabilized. So check her out. But if you are already ordering cream cheese from Amazon that is butter-like in consistency, that it's hard and spreadable, that is probably a start, because then the additives that causes the cream cheese to be that solid is better than your Philadelphia tub one. But also key to in the UK is that cream cheese, when left outside of the fridge, has a 4 hour, what's the word? The word is out of my brain is gone blank, but thank you. The shelf life, when you I had some assistance here, okay? The shelf life of cream cheese when it is out of the fridge is, I think, up to about 4 hours here in the UK. Following food safety guidelines. So because it has such a short shelf life from when it's not refrigerated, I just, for food safety, I don't want anyone to catch a problem with their food and stuff. So I don't even serve cream cheese as part of my generalized options of cake choices unless a customer specifically asks for it, and then I tailor the recipe to them. So I wouldn't say I know a lot about cream cheese because the shelf life thing is a thing, and cream cheese itself, it's not stable. But Adriana has, if I ever made cream cheese on this channel, it would be her recipe. But like always, if I'm using somebody else's recipe, I give them credit. Like today's lemon and poppy seed recipe, we sourced it from YouTube, I think Home Baking Adventure. I will link all of that in the description box. So do check Adriana out, Asia. Hopefully you should find some cream cheese resources to help you. I did watch a video of hers where she actually undertook a whole science process. She added milk, as in dry milk. She did some skirmishes to the whole thing and then ended up optimizing the cream cheese for better structure. So you want to check her out. But having said that, I am lately thinking about cream cheese and what I want to get out of it so that I can have a new learning experience and also learn something different from what I'm used to. So perhaps I'll come back and make some videos about cream cheese. But in the meantime, I've only ever used Philadelphia which doesn't give you a great consistency at all. It melts, it doesn't hold, and I haven't even been able to use it for cheesecake. Asia, what do you use for cheesecakes? Do you use the cream cheese you buy on Amazon, or you use the Philadelphia? Because the Philadelphia, I find when you mix other things into it, it splits. So cream cheese is a little bit funny, you know. I have added a bit of cream cheese too. So this is how I formulate my cream cheese recipe. I forgo all the other processes, right? Because there's a science to it where when you introduce sugar, as in icing sugar to the cream cheese when you're whipping it, it soaks up the moisture in the sugar and then ends up being runny. There's a science to it. Check Adriana out. She's great. But that said, when I have forgone all those processes, so this is what I do if I want to get a bit of cream cheese flavor to my cake. I get my Swiss meringue buttercream made a day earlier, left to chill, brought back to room temperature, all of that. And then I add half the big tub of Philadelphia. I add about half of that to straight away into my Swiss meringue buttercream and begin to mix it. You'll find that when you're creaming that together, it doesn't mix together at all. It breaks because both do not mix seamlessly. So when it's whipping, what I do then is I get a bit of lemon juice, warm it up, and then add that into the mixture, as in the cream cheese and Swiss meringue buttercream mixture, and then it melts together nicely. It's actually very smooth. It has a kick to it. It's nice. But then again, I should say it's not stable at all. So I only ever formulate that for, say, if I want a quick fix to a cake and I want to eat the cake quickly, like, say, my carrot cake recipe. It matches great with that kind of cream cheese buttercream. But then I won't be serving that buttercream to a customer, because in the summer heat that will not stabilize in the cake. It will melt and then it will drip into oil into the cake layers. Okay, so we've already made a pineapple upside down cake. Today we're making a lemon and poppy seed. On Saturday, because we're here Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. Now, that is commitment for me. And I've already said I have commitment issues, okay? Well, if I have to commit to anything, it just makes me question my own inadequacies. So this is the first time I'm putting it out there that we are going to be doing the lives on a Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, when time permits and allows. It's a commitment I'm making. However, this commitment can be affected by how busy I am and what is happening in my daily life. But this is a commitment I am making to you, that if you support me, if you continue to tune in, if you continue to encourage and engage in the chat, it will be my dream to still be here serving you, answering your baking questions, answering your questions for you, and helping you achieve some success if you're a baker, or anything else you would require my help with. Having said that, our poppy and lemon cake is baking. And then on Saturday, so we've done the pineapple upside down, which was a hit and a great surprise. If you haven't checked it, you should, because over here we don't hide our reactions, you know. So when I get the bake out and it's good, you see me really excited on the chat, right? So you want to check that out. On Saturday, I am hoping there is a recipe besides your nominations. There are recipe I want to try for myself, right? Like the hummingbird cake, like a peach cobbler, like a good carrot cake. So in between baking your own your nominated cakes, I will also be creating some classic cakes or things that I have not baked before, and I will be sourcing like recipes, new ones, so we maintain the same objectives with this series. Asia is nominating an Earl Grey and blueberry cake tutorial. Noted, 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 noted. Asia has a few orders for the weekend. Okay. Oh, Well, I hope you are not too exhausted because, ooh, sometimes when I am in baking groups and someone comes and posts like 6, 7 cakes they made, I look at it, I'm like, I am tired for you. Like you know what? Any baker would love to have bakes consistently, but I am just worn out. The mental process of creating custom cakes that much, unless, okay, here's my problem. When I had the chance to undertake a cake shop for a limited time with the prospect of growing it into a site for a cake shop. And I found very quickly it didn't excite me. It didn't excite me to make generic cakes, but I was also equally burnt out easily and exhausted from having to create custom cakes, a lot of it in one week. So that is my experience. Asia, how do you feel about it? With that said, we are an hour and 5 minutes. Woo! Time has flown. No, we're not an hour and 5 minutes. The cake went in at 12:15. So we are 50 minutes out. It's 5 minutes past one. We're 50 minutes out. Let's go and check on the cake. If it's great, it's great. And if it's falling apart, we will see. Okay? Let's see. Oh my goodness, people. The cake has come out. Okay. Right. Oh God, I wasn't expecting it to be done this quickly, but let's put a skewer in and see. Okay. There is a bit of the crumb in the middle is a bit wet. It's not bad. Some bakers would say if it's like that, then your cake is done. Some bakers will say if it comes out super clean, then it is going to be dry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it in the oven for another 10 minutes because it is done, but it's slightly wet and I don't like the wet feeling and texture in the middle of the cake. I'm going to keep my comments to myself now. And then we'll come back in 10 minutes. But to stop the cake from over baking and burning, I'm just going to put a foil on it. Right, let's look at it again. So this is the second look at our cake and the time is exactly 1:13. So we're 2 minutes short of an hour and the cake is done. Yay, it's done. It's come out super clean. And if you wonder why I put the foil on it, it is just so that I can trap the heat together in there so it doesn't escape. It helps cook the cake evenly without overcooking the cake. So our cake is done. Over here, let's have a look at it. It has a very soft crumb to the top, crust to the top. It's super dry when it's come out. Okay, the recipe developer at this point pokes holes in the cake. That is exactly what I'm doing. And then she brushes the sugar syrup into the cake, which is what I am going to do. I had other ideas for this cake. I wanted to put curd in it, but I'm sure another time will come. Oh, Anytime Bakes. Hello. Ooh, okay. So I am brushing the syrup onto the cake, and the syrup literally disappears into the cake. Ooh, this Anytime Bakes is reaching us from India. She is a friend of the channel, and I think in our last series she was asking for us to make so American buttercream or something, a stable buttercream that doesn't use eggs. So Anytime Bakes, that might take me a little time because it will require research and stuff like that, but I will come back to you on that subject. Yeah. So I don't want the cake to be too soggy. So I have run the syrup over that. I want to eat the cake already, but I can't. In the meantime, right, if you're just joining us in the chat, our lemon and poppy seed cake is done. This is the second in the series. You pick a recipe, I get to bake the cake. And this is a lemon and poppy seed cake that has some lemon and pineapple syrup glazed over it. We will leave this to set for 5 minutes. I'll leave it in the fridge over here for just 5 minutes, and then we'll come back, take it out, and then cut into it and have a taste. How does that sound? So we're a minute away, and then we will be flipping our bake over, and we'll see what it looks like. Well, our cake is back from the fridge. Our cake is back from the fridge. So let's see what we have here. Oh, it is a rather simple loaf though. Oh my goodness. Can you see? It is so lightly textured. Forget the little burn on the top here. It makes no difference. So let's see if we cut into this. Oh my God. Okay. If you're a lemon cake lover, this is a good one. Full disclosure, I don't like lemon cake very much. If I have to eat a lemon cake, it has to be specifically tailored to my preference. But that's because I'm a baker and I can undertake a bake to suit me. For this cake, the quantity of poppy seed, I think for all the things we need, poppy seed was about 30 grams. Side note, I don't like the feeling of crunching into the poppy seed. It is disturbing my mouth feel. So if I were to make this recipe, I would reduce the poppy seed by probably 10 grams and reduce it to 20 or 15, just so that they are sparsely spread in the cake. That way they bring their own functions to the cake whilst also not interfering with mouthfeel. That said, The flavor of the poppy seed I don't particularly like, but that is not an effect on the cake. That is just from my own preference, what I like and what I don't like, right? So yeah, but don't forget, the flavor of a cake develops better after it has been left to set and cool, and then the structure is settled. So who knows? This might change if I was eating this cake 24 hours later or a couple of hours after it has baked. Because a cake from fresh is different when you taste it. So that is something to bear in mind. Having said that, the recipe itself should be solid. But here's something I'm thinking about. Considering the actual recipe called for plain flour, all-purpose flour with rising agent in it, and I substituted it for half self-raising and half plain. For the rise and lift, I think I made a good call, because had I used self-raising flour, this cake would have risen over and probably the structure would have been a little bit disturbed. So I am happy with the substitutions I made, all of which I will note in the description box for you. The original recipe also didn't add lemon juice to the cake. So I'm thinking whether it was solely relying on the lemon syrup to soak the cake up. I'm not sure. But I added a bit of lemon to the buttermilk. So the quantity of buttermilk or liquid here was 120 mils. And I split it. I had 50 mils of fresh lemon juice. But even so, I can't feel the kick of the lemon towards the bottom of the cake. I can only feel it from the top because of the drip of syrup. So I'm just thinking to myself, if I didn't add the lemon juice, would I have felt the lemon flavor? Not so much. So perhaps I'll make a note of all of that. In the description box. But this makes a great coffee cake. Nice, easy bake, not fussy and not hard to achieve. Solidly recommend this. I'll leave all the descriptions for you. What do you think?